The Burj Khalifa in Dubai is the tallest man-made feature on the face of the planet, and one of the greatest achievements in engineering history. To dream it up took outrageous ambition. To put it together requires nerves of steel. Constructing cranes taller. Installing windows higher.
Up!
And building bigger than ever before.
The immediate reaction was, are you crazy?
As the construction team makes history, they film it themselves. This is the story of one incredible skyscraper, and the people risking their reputations and their lives to build it.
All these people that are underneath this are at risk.
In the Middle Eastern Emirate of Dubai stands an architectural giant. At 828 meters high, the Burj Khalifa is the tallest building on Earth. This $1.5 billion tower opened in 2010 with one of the most spectacular fireworks displays ever seen. But this patch of land once looked very different. 6 years earlier, when construction started, it was little more than a barren, parched, and sun-baked desert. In February 2004, the team breaks ground at the Burj site. When you build this big, speed is of the essence.
Time is money. There's so much money invested in these buildings, you have to finish them and start recouping your investment.
Construction manager David Bradford is the man responsible for getting the job done on time.
So I was ecstatic, just to get a job like this. It's like a dream come true. This is the biggest building in the world. How many people get an opportunity to work on a job like this?
But as David starts work, the architects are still finalizing the tower's complex design.
The way you build a building like this, you have to fast-track it. So you can't wait until you get all the design in place. You'll be sitting there in your office for 3 years trying to get the design finished before you can tender it.
With large parts of the structure still on the drawing board, the construction team heads into the sky. The fastest way to build a tower like the Burj is with reinforced concrete, using a process called jump forming. The team builds molds at the base. They insert steel reinforcement bars and pour in concrete. Then when the concrete sets, the team lifts the molds up to the next level. And the process starts again. Using this system, the building begins growing at the pace of one new floor every week.
When you set the jump form up like this, you put the rebar in, you pour the concrete in the top. After 12 hours, this is 12 hours after you place the concrete, which is liquid, you pull the forms back and you actually climb the hydraulic jump form system up on the concrete that was previously poured. And then that climbs up automatically 4 meters at a time.
The Burj Khalifa is the brainchild of Dubai property developer Emaar. They want to proclaim the city's growing status as a global financial center by building the world's tallest tower. So Emaar has called in one of America's top architecture firms, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. SOM is based in Chicago, the home of the skyscraper. As their chief engineer Bill Baker knows, building higher isn't simply a case of taking an old design and adding more floors. The added height creates a unique set of engineering challenges.
We're on the 90th floor of the Willis Tower, formerly known as the Sears Tower. As you look out across Chicago skyline, you see almost a sampler of skyscraper technology. Over here is the Aon Tower, which was formerly called the Standard Oil Building, and it's a single tube.
Each time architects go taller, they must invent new structural systems.
If you look, the predecessor to the Sears Tower, the John Hancock Tower, it's called a brace tube. So you can see the diagonal bracing on each of the four sides ties all those columns together so that it acts as if it's one tube acting together.
One of the last great structural inventions came with the tower that Bill is standing on. At 442 meters, the Willis Tower was the world's tallest building until 1996. Its design is called a bundled tube. Essentially, it's made up of 9 towers bound together to create a single rigid structure. But this design has its limits.
This 9 tubes is sufficient for a building of this height, at 442 meters, but what if you wanted to go taller? Say you wanted to go up to over 700 meters. Well, you got to make the footprint bigger. But as we do this, we've gone from something that was 3 wide to something that's 5 wide. So you have a huge amount of area, which is difficult to market, and what's more important is that the space becomes very, very deep. In buildings, you want to have views. You want to be able to see out the window. And you can see your occupants would be so far from the views from the skin as to render the building unusable.
To create a taller tower with bright internal spaces, Bill and his team devise a new structural system.
The structural system we use for the Burj Khalifa is the buttress core. Now the core is the center hexagon in the middle of the building, and that's what's used to resist the twisting forces on the building, okay? But it's much too slender to go to such great heights. So it needs to be buttressed. Now the buttresses are the 3 wings that come off, consisting of these walls that go down the corridors. So you can see how this core has been buttressed in 3 directions. That's why the structure going on the wings. To my knowledge, it's never been done anywhere else. And so it's a unique solution to a very interesting problem.
With the buttressed core concept, natural light floods the interior.
We've come up with a solution which allows us to go very, very tall, but it's light and airy on the inside. It's as if you're in a 10-story building rather than a 160-story building.
In SOM's design, the large tower base helps support the huge weight of steel and concrete. Then, as the building climbs, the buttresses step back in a rising spiral. The team then coats the design in glistening mirrored glass to reflect the desert heat and light.
If you were to compare the Burj to an automobile, you'd be talking about Lamborghinis or Ferraris. It's all about performance, and this building is at the highest level of performance.
This quality comes at a price.
The building cost was a closely guarded secret. We heard some general figures that were thrown out. We guessed that it was somewhere in the $1.5 billion range, but we weren't privy to a lot of that information. And again, I think the jury's still out.
Making this billion-dollar design a reality will be a mammoth task. The most basic construction materials must be super-powered.
Strength of concrete was key here, absolutely key. And we produced concrete here that nobody produced anywhere else.
The team uses over 25 separate ingredients to create concrete that stays liquid as it's pumped up the building and then turns solid extremely fast. But getting this special mix to set is a massive challenge in Dubai, with temperatures rising over 45 degrees Celsius.
If the concrete is too hot, it'll set instantaneously and you can't even place it. You have to pour at night when the temperatures are lower, and you have to put in ice and chill water in the concrete mix.
To lift